Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This is one with the 9-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. Unfortunately, it's not another 4-game slate as we've had that the past 2 days. And I hate 4-game slates because everyone's high owned and your lowest owned guy is usually like 30% and you feel pretty good about that. Everyone else is like 50-60%. So hopefully we can avoid a chalk mess tonight, although every night seems to be chalky, so we probably can't avoid it, but hopefully it's at least a little bit better than the last 2 nights. But anyway, before we continue, if you guys, as always, could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and I previewed it yesterday, but if you're interested in the spreadsheet about every single night for the NBA season, projections, defense first position chart, Discord chat, and my up-to-date cheat sheet, links down in the description below for my Patreon. I update that all the way up until lock and after lock with news that comes out. So I don't just set it and forget it. I will update it throughout the day and let you guys know my most up-to-date info. And without further ado, let's get into today's slate. So, up top, we have Luka, who is much deserved to be up top. Now, he's the most expensive player by $1,500, but if you have enough salary, I do think he's worth the play because whenever he's on the slate, I do my best to try to see if I can fit in Luka. Sometimes it's pretty hard to do, but if you can, I love it because the guy is an absolute beast at fantasy basketball. I mean, just straight superstar. He does everything. He's nearly averaging a triple-double. He has 29 points, 9 assists, and 9.5 boards on this season, and he's got triple-double upside every single night. He just had one December 28th versus Golden State where he had 78 fantasy points, almost had one versus OKC where he had 62 fantasy points. The guy's just an absolute beast, and his upside's insane. He's averaging 1.74 points per minute, which is second highest in the NBA right now, only behind Giannis. And the cool thing is, Luka plays more minutes than Giannis does on a nightly basis, so kind of evens out right there. And he's got a 37% usage rate, and there's nothing bad I can say about him. He just does everything. I love this spot for him. It's a nice pace-up spot versus Brooklyn, who's 4th in pace-up play while Dallas is 18th. So I like getting guys in pace-up spots, especially someone like Luka that can thrive in that game environment. And this is also an elite matchup, too, as Brooklyn ranks 27th versus point guards. So if you got the dough, I love Luka tonight. Now, I know he's 12K, and there's not a lot of value options, so it might be a little bit far-fetched to play him. I'm just letting you know if more value opens up. I think Luka is a fantastic option to spend your money. Towns, I'm going to assume he's out. Let's see if we have any. No, they haven't updated it yet, but I'm assuming he's out. He has not played in forever. Don't see a reason why he would play at this point, to be honest. Now we're actually going to take a big scroll here. So usually I talk about a lot of high-end guys. Well, it's looking like one of those days where I might have just a lot of mid-range options because I don't love anyone else. So if I like Luka, I don't really like Drummond, I don't really like Kawhi, I don't really like Jokic. But Gobert, I actually have some interest in Gobert here at 8,900. Now, he's very expensive, so this is probably just a GPP play only, but you really can't ask for a better matchup for a center versus Chicago. He should dominate the glass down low. Chicago is 30th versus centers and power forwards. They suck versus big men, and he should be able to gobble up all the rebounds possible. They are one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA, and I could very easily see him getting a 20-20 game out of him. And now, I've yet to play him this year because I really don't like playing Rudy Gobert because his upside's a little bit capped. He's only averaging 1.13 points per minute on the season, but this is such a good matchup, and he's going to play about 35 minutes in competitive games. So Rudy Gobert, I think he's fine for GPPs. Probably won't pay 9K for him in cash games, but definitely on my radar because the matchup is just so good. Scrolling down a little bit, Sabonis here at 8,400. He is on my radar. Now, I don't love playing guys versus Denver, but Brogdon's out, so that's the main. Well, he's listed as doubtful, but I assume he's going to be out. So we got to have interest in Sabonis here. Without him on the court this season, Sabonis has a 24% usage rate, and he's averaging 1.24 points per minute. Pretty respectable numbers. Now, the price is up, I will say that. Earlier in the season, he was like around 7K, which made it easier to play him. 8,400, pushing it a little bit, but he's a safe bet for over 40 fantasy points. Now, in the matchup and game environment, it does give me concern. Both teams play extremely slow. Denver is 27th, and I think the Pacers are like 23rd, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be a slow-paced game, and also both teams are pretty good defensively, and Denver is 7th versus power forward. So I don't love the matchup. I don't like the game environment either. But really, my only interest here is just because Brogdon will be out, and it's going to be a bump to Sabonis. But I just hate the game environment, so I totally understand if you don't want to play Sabonis. I don't think he's going to make my main lineup, to be honest. Scrolling down, you could look at Devontae Graham here at 8,200. Not a lot of spend-up guys I like. I'm realizing it. So I think I'm going to live in this mid-range. Maybe we get a couple value plays. Hopefully we can fit in Luka, and that might be a good way to go tonight. Obviously, I don't try to build lineups until like 6 p.m. Eastern time because it just makes no sense to make a lineup early because news comes out later in the day, and it just makes no sense to me to get stuck on one lineup that I made earlier. So I just don't build until like the last hour of the day or last 30 minutes, and it just makes more sense because I only make one lineup. I don't do multi-entry. If I did multi-entry, I'm sure I'd have to start way earlier in the day. But single entry, I just wait as long as I can to get, to start building lineups, just when I can get all the information possible. But Devontae Graham, I have yet to play Devontae Graham this year. Now, that might be a mistake because the guy's been an absolute stud sometimes. But he's just at the point where he's expensive, and this is the most expensive he's been in a while. But this is an elite matchup versus Cleveland. They're just downright terrible versus guards, and just in general on defense. They're the third worst defense in just general, and then they're 29th versus point guards. So Devontae Graham should be able to eat here. It could be one of his ceiling games where he scores like 60 fantasy points, depending on if he's hitting his shots or not, hitting his threes. The guy shoots a ton of threes last like 4 games, 9, 12, 13, 13. So I like the volume, and he's going to play huge minutes. And he could smash here. And he's shown a high ceiling this season. He's had multiple games over 60 fantasy points. And he's got a 25% usage rate, but only 1.09 points per minute. So I do have that's why, he's only 1.09 at 8,200. That's a tough price to pay for someone that's not great on a point per minute basis. So he's kind of just contingent on his shots falling. But, he can do it. And he gets peripheral stats too. 10 assists, 13 assists, 10 assists, 4 boards, 9 boards, 4 boards, 4 boards. Not too bad. I think he gets you over 40 fantasy points. 8,200. It's a really good matchup. Maybe he goes a little bit lower owned because of that price hike, but I think he's a solid play at 8,200. I don't mind him whatsoever. Just going down a little bit here. D'Lo's out, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit, all the secondary options on Golden State. But the guy I want to talk about now is De'Aaron Fox here at 7,300, and I think he's a pretty good play. Now, the last time I played him and recommended him, he got 6 points in the first 2 minutes, and then he never came back, and he burned all of our lineups. But I'm willing to forgive him here and give him another shot in a good spot versus Memphis. Memphis is terrible defensively, ranking 4th worst overall, and versus point guards they're 21st, and versus shooting guards they're 30th. So they just absolutely suck versus guards, and this is also a big pace-up spot for the Sacramento Kings. The Kings play slow. They're 29th in pace of play, but Memphis is top 10, so I love big pace-up spots, especially for someone like De'Aaron Fox who could thrive in that kind of game environment. And they also have a strong 113 team total, which is one of the highest on the slate. And he's been good this year when he's on the court. 28% usage rate, 1.14 points per minute. As of right now, I think the Kings have the highest total on the slate. Last night, they had the highest total on the slate. So that might be wrong now because I already have my notes written down. I did like half the slate last night and then did half the slate this morning. But the Kings have a pretty high total is what I'm getting at. So De'Aaron Fox, I do think he's a very solid option at a fair price point. All right, let's see. So next guy you could look at Rozier just because Cleveland is so bad versus guards, but I really don't like playing Terry Rozier. I just don't like his upside, especially at 6,800. I liked him when he was like in the high 5K, low 6K range, but at this price point, probably going to pass. But you could look at Buddy Hield here at 6,700. So I just talked about De'Aaron Fox, so I'm not going to repeat the matchup because it's pretty much the same matchup. They're both guards, but Memphis is dead last 30th versus shooting guards, and I think Buddy Hield can have a pretty good game here. Like I said, it should be a pretty nice pace-up spot for the Sacramento Kings. And on the season, he's got a 28% usage rate, been about a point per minute. He's seeing 35-plus minutes a game, so I don't see why he can't flirt with 40 fantasy points in this elite matchup versus Memphis. So don't hate the idea of using Buddy Hield or De'Aaron Fox, or both, to be honest. You could look at Draymond Green, too, just because everyone's out on the Warriors. We got Willie Cauley-Stein out. D'Lo's out. Obviously, Curry's out. So he's going to play 30-plus minutes in a competitive game. He almost had a triple-double in the last game. Obviously, overtime would help that. But I think he's a safe bet for 30-plus points. But I don't really like playing Draymond Green at 6,800. I like him when he's in this low 6K, high 5K range. So 6,800, I'm probably going to pass personally. But I'd rather play Damian Lee for 200 less. So I do like Damian Lee here at 6,600. Now, with D'Lo out, Willie Cauley-Stein out, which is going to lead us to play all these secondary options for the Warriors. Problem is they priced them up a bit, but I still think they're solid plays. And maybe they'll go a little bit lower owned than they should just because they got a little bit of a price hike. But Damian Lee only came up 400. I still think he's a pretty solid play. And they're just going to have to play so many minutes, and there's just a lot of usage to go around with all the injuries. So do you like Damian Lee? He's the most expensive of the secondary bunch, excluding Draymond Green, but he's actually been great recently. He's at 32 points, 38, 34, 54 on Christmas, 29, 32. The guy's been pretty solid. He's seeing big minutes, probably going to get about 35 minutes tonight. And running the numbers with all those guys off the court, he's averaging 0.9 points per minute and a 20% usage rate, which is not that bad. It's also a really good matchup versus Minnesota, too. They played the fastest play of play so far this season, and they ranked 27th versus shooting guards. So I think Damian Lee, he would be a solid play tonight. I think he can get you 30-plus fantasy points at 6,600. I don't mind game stacking this game up with all the mid-range options. I don't think that's a bad way to go. This should be a pretty good game for fantasy purposes, considering we have a lot of injuries and 2 bad defenses, and it's going to be played pretty fast. So I think this is going to be a good source for fantasy options tonight. And we could also look at Alec Burks here, who I actually have a lot of interest in. He's 6,500, and again, he's priced up, but someone's got to score on this team. And I think it's more than likely going to be Alec Burks and Damian Lee. And I feel pretty safe with Alec Burks. I prefer Burks over Damian Lee just because I think he's a little bit safer, but they're both pretty solid plays to me, and I like the matchup here. It's great and it's fast paced. And Burks, he does have the best numbers on the team with all these guys off the court. He's got a 25% usage rate, and he's been over a point per minute. He should get over 30 minutes tonight. I think he can get you 40 fantasy points again, at least 30 to 35 with upside of 40. So Alec Burks definitely on my radar. I think he's going to probably be the highest scorer on the Golden State Warriors. So I think this is going to be a really nice back and forth game. So Alec Burks would make a ton of sense for me. Then on the other side, we have Gorgie Deng on the T-Wolves at 6,500. Now, obviously, if Karl-Anthony Towns happens to play, we'd have to downgrade Gorgie Deng. But I don't think he's going to be playing, and I think everyone's going to be out again. So Gorgie Deng would definitely be on my radar. Now, I feel like whenever I play him, he busts. Because if we look at the game log, just at least the last 4 games, I played him versus Milwaukee, and I played him versus Cleveland. He gets 24 minutes, he gets 23 minutes, he got 25 points, 26 points. I didn't play him versus Brooklyn, and I didn't play him versus Sacramento. He gets 48 points and 48 points. I don't know, maybe the guy just hates me. But if we're looking at a pattern here, he does good, does bad, does good, does bad. We're due for a good game. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything. But I do think he should have a pretty good game here versus Golden State. I would expect Towns and Wiggins to be out again, and also Jeff Teague should be out as well. In Minnesota, they just play so fast, and Willie Cauley-Stein, who is a solid defender, will be out again, so it's also a boost for Deng down low. And for the most part, he's been solid this season without Towns or Wiggy. I already said, though, he likes to bust for me when I play him. But his numbers without them on the court are pretty good. 20% usage rate, 1.28 points per minute, which is highest on the team. So Gorgie Deng definitely have interest in him at 6,500, despite him always sucking when I play him. So if I don't play him, just know he's getting 50 points. And if I do, he's probably going to get you 20 points. So I'll have to let you guys know if I do end up playing him. But let's see, scrolling down a little bit. We want to talk about Shabazz Napier here. He comes in at 5,900. Now the price keeps coming up, but I still have interest because the guy's been pretty darn good, especially the past 2 games, and actually the past 4 games relative to his price tag. Cleveland, well, I shouldn't say versus Cleveland, he only had 16 points, but 3,300, he got 22 points versus Sacramento. That's pretty good. But with Wiggins, he's got illness. Karl-Anthony Towns probably not going to play. Jeff Teague's probably not going to play. He's dealing with, I think he's got the sprained knee. Napier should play another 30 minutes tonight, if not more, and it's a really good matchup versus Golden State. They ranked 26th versus point guards, and without all these guys on the court this season, he has a team high 29% usage rate, and he's over a point per minute. So if he's gonna get like 35 minutes in this game, I think he gets you over 30 fantasy points. And the guy's been pretty good. He's got upside. He's good at hitting his 3-pointers. We saw that in college when he was on UConn. Guy was always blazing threes, and last night he was 4 for 7 from deep. So volume's going to be there. It's a good matchup versus Golden State. It's still a fair price point for all the guys that are injured on Timberwolves. So if you're going to give me a guy with 30% usage rate, sub 6K in a good matchup, good game environment, yeah, I'll take it. So I don't mind Shabazz Napier whatsoever. So he's a really good play in my opinion, despite the price hike. We could also look at his teammate Robert Covington, who comes in at 5,600, and surprisingly, he's still pretty cheap. He played over 30 minutes the past 3 games, 33, 35, 35. Then he had 40 versus Sacramento, although I believe that game went into overtime. But he's been solid, 35, 37, 29, 33. Nothing really too exciting, but 5,600 and all these guys off the court, he's going to play big minutes, and I think he gets you over 30 points again in a solid matchup versus Golden State. He's been about 0.9 points per minute with all these guys off the court. Now, the only concern for me would be he's probably going to draw the toughest defensive matchup between all the starters on the Timberwolves, as he's going to more than likely be matched up versus Draymond Green, who is a solid defender. And Golden State actually does rank 9th versus power forward, so it's actually the toughest matchup for anyone on the T-Wolves, but they're just going to have to pick up the slack with everyone off the court. It's going to be a fast-paced matchup, so I don't hate the idea of using Robert Covington either, even with Draymond Green probably going to be guarding him. I don't mind him. And then, let's see, we could look at Marquise Chris still just staying in this game. I think like the last 5 guys we talked about have been in this game. But, I don't mind him. He played 34 minutes versus San Antonio. Obviously, overtime helped, but if you take away overtime, he's going to play like 29 minutes. So pretty much 30 minutes. And he had 30 fantasy points. On the game before that, he had 29 fantasy points in 17 minutes. Now, he's priced up, and I do understand wanting to play him in game stacks, but if I'm just making one lineup, I think I'm going to have a hard time paying this much for Marquise Chris because really the guy's not that good, and he likes to foul, so he could always get into foul trouble as well. But he's over a point per minute guy, so if he's going to get 29 minutes, I think he can get you over 30 fantasy points. The problem is, will he stay out of foul trouble? Hopefully. I mean, the past 3 games, he's been good with that 1-0-3, and then they only had 4 versus Houston, but that was also in 12 minutes, so you got to think about it that way as well. But I think Marquise Chris will be fine here as long as he gets a full allotment of minutes. It's a good matchup versus Minnesota, just in general, because it's going to be a fast-paced game. I like this game for fantasy purposes. So Marquise Chris on my radar, but he's no longer a value play, so not just a free plug-in. Same exact thing can be said for Christian Wood here. He is, 5,100. So he's a really good point per minute guy, just like Marquise Chris. Played 28 minutes last game versus Utah in a tough matchup. Had 21 fantasy points, 9 boards, 11 points. Now, again, this is a tough matchup versus the Clippers, but Blake Griffin, if I remember correctly. Let me double check that. Yeah, Blake Griffin's not going to play, Markieff Morris as well. So Christian Wood, he's going to get close to 30 minutes tonight. He's been over a point per minute this season. I don't think he's going to get over 30 fantasy points, but just going off the numbers, if he's going to get 30 minutes, been over a point per minute. So I think he can get you at least 25 fantasy points, if not more, 5,100. So he's not the worst play in the world, but now he's priced to a point just like Marquise Chris, where he's no longer a value and a free plug-in. You can also look at Jarrett Culver here. Just, again, more Minnesota guys. I've talked about a lot of Golden State Minnesota guys, but I think that's where a lot of people on my lineup are going to come from. And he's been really good the past 2 games. He played 38 minutes and 33 minutes, 41 points and 30 points. I just love this game tonight for fantasy purposes. You guys know that by now. And both teams have so many injuries. They don't play defense, so it makes sense to want a lot of guys from these teams. Without everyone on the court this season, he's got a 23% usage rate and 0.8 points per minute. Now the prices come up like all these other guys, like these other Minnesota guys. But I did play him last night for 4,800, so I'll play him again at 5K in a really good matchup versus Golden State. He really struggles versus guards. So Jarrett Culver definitely on my radar if you want another just plug in from this game. You could also look at, let's see, TJ McConnell. I think he's 4,300. Yeah, he's 4,300. So Malcolm Brogdon, we're expecting him to be out, and that's just going to open up more minutes for guys like Aaron Holiday and TJ McConnell, but TJ is the cheapest one of the bunch here, and so we're going to talk about him because we do need some value plays. And he had a good game last time out versus Philly, which was a tough matchup. He had 27 minutes, 4 boards, 10 assists, 11 points, 31 fantasy points. Not too bad. And I expect him to do pretty much about the same tonight. And if he's going to get about 25 minutes, that should do the job here, because without Brogdon on the court, McConnell is averaging 1.06 points per minute, about a 20% usage rate, I believe. Now, I will say the game environment sucks. I already talked about that with Sabonis. Both teams are slow and good on defense. Maybe that fits a guy like McConnell pretty well. But the matchup sucks too. We don't have many good values on this slate, so I think McConnell is, again, we're going to have to be a guy we look to. Again, just not a lot of values. That's the only reason I like McConnell at this point. But I do think there's a better point guard on this slate for a little bit cheaper, which I will talk about. But I still think McConnell is a pretty good play. I think he can get you 25, 30 fantasy points in this matchup. See, Kevin Porter, I believe he's 42. Yeah, only 100 less than TJ McConnell. This is not the guy I was talking about. I'll talk about him last. But Kevin Porter, he's actually been okay the past few games here. If we look at his fantasy, just relative to his price tag, 29 points, 25, 19, 23. Not too bad, playing decent minutes as well, 23, 25, 30, 28. And his usage rate is pretty good the past 4 games too. He's averaging a 25% usage rate the past 4 games, so I do like that. 4,200, pretty cheap in a good matchup versus Charlotte at home. I don't hate the idea. If he's going to get 25 plus minutes, I think he get you 20 plus fantasy points at 4,200. So he's, again, a guy you can keep on your radar. Not one of my favorite plays in the world, but he does grade out as a pretty good value play. Now, the guy that actually grades out as my number 1 value play on the slate as of right now is Jalen Brunson here at 3,400. And like I said, he grades out as the top value on my sheet. And this is just because Tim Hardaway is out, so he did get the start last game. And we played Jalen Brunson when Luka was out, because when Luka's back in, he pretty much turns into dust. But Tim Hardaway is out, so he's going to draw the start again like he did last game. And he only played 23 minutes, and he did suck with 11 fantasy points. But he's going to be better than that on most nights. And I think he gets close to 25 minutes here, and I think he can get you 20 plus fantasy points. I think I'm projected for 23 right now. And 23 at 3,400 is not that bad at all. And this is a really good game environment. It's a fast-paced matchup versus Brooklyn, and they really struggle with the guards, so this does set up pretty well for him. And on the season, he's about 0.97 points per minute kind of guy. With Luka out, he's like 1.1, so obviously it'd be a lot better if Luka was out, but that's not going to be the case. So Jalen Brunson, 3,400, he's not a bad value play. I think he can flirt with 20 fantasy points as long as he gets 20 plus minutes. Good fast-paced matchup versus Brooklyn. It really struggles with guards. So Jalen Brunson is on my radar as of right now. And that's the last guy I think I'm going to talk about on this slate. So again, I hope this video was helpful, guys. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And I'm hungry. I'm going to get some breakfast, and I'll see you guys in the next video.